The current version of Minecraft is silky smooth and relatively bug-free in single player the majority of the time. But this was rarely the case before the major bug-fixing patches in the last few years. And before around 2016, entire versions could completely break or alter the very foundations of Minecraft, whether that be for hours, months, or even years. So in today's video, we'll be talking about them, the broken updates of Minecraft Java Edition. I decided to cover this topic because broken updates tend to be forgotten, only remembered through the Minecraft Wikipedia, and in them, there can be some really interesting and unique quirks not seen anywhere else. We'll be starting with the least broken on the list to the most broken. Consider leaving a like and subscribing, and perhaps even hitting that bell button if you really want notifications for my videos. Anyways, enough of that, let's get right into the first version on this list. So let's imagine yourself back in the late December of 2010. You've been hearing about this increasingly popular game that just went into its beta phase, and decided to check it out for yourself. After making a Minecraft account and buying a copy of the game, you get into the launcher and load up the current version, Beta 1.1. Everything seems normal at first as the Mojang logo is shown off in the startup, but when you go into the title screen you see this? Why are there no labels as to where to go? This is what happens when a developer somehow forgets to add in the font.txt file, meaning that all text in the game is missing. Once you make your way into the game though, the only notable difference is that there are no item tooltips, which were only actually added in Beta 1.0. So if you had already been playing the game and downloaded this version in the 15 or 20 minutes it was available for before getting patched, it'd be inconvenient but still playable. Oh yeah, and you couldn't open chests with your free hand. By the way, if you wanted to find out how to play these broken versions, I've linked a video down to a fellow YouTuber's tutorial on how to do so in the description, and it's by far the most helpful tutorial in this regard. For this next version, let's get Beta 1.1 on the screen. Switch Beta for Alpha and add another .1, and you have the infamous Alpha 1.1.1, probably the most well-known on this list. It was the last of the secret updates, which were a collection of weekly updates during the Infdev and Alpha that added in some of the most important features Minecraft has today. This particular update added in fishing rods, some of the most iconic paintings, and the ability to sneak, which is still one of the most important and helpful features ever added to the game. But there was a pretty major issue. If you loaded into the game, your game would look like this. Not very interesting. This happened because the gamma sliders in the game settings got messed up, making the screen look grayed out. Now, the most fascinating part about this relatively minor issue is that very few people got to experience this version. Even though it was available for several hours, new players were flooding Mojang servers, and brought the download speed to a snail's pace. Due to this rush of players, Notch subsequently introduced some load-bearing changes into their servers, which caused payments unable to go through. He spun this around as a free weekend and got tons of publicity from major news outlets, increasing the game's growth drastically. This version was thought to be completely lost for more than 10 years, but just recently it was found on the hard drive of a Twitter user, so that's neat. The infinite development versions of the game are kind of the black sheep for Minecraft updates. It bridges the gap from the old, classic versions of the game to the iconic alpha and beta updates that most of us know something about. But it was extremely important, most notably making worlds essentially infinite, instead of being just a few hundred blocks large. Now, the very first Infdev version is currently lost, but the second has been archived and only fixed a minor issue as far as I can tell. So let's load into the world and see what it looks like. Oh. Well, this looks quite, interesting. If you compare this update with versions before and after it, things look drastically different. The skybox is a solid blue, and terrain generation has been reverted back to how it was very early on. Caves, sand, gravel, level saving, mobs, your player model, all other entities, trees, the daylight cycle, ore generation, dynamic lighting, nearly everything besides the bare basics was completely removed and stripped from the game, except for dandelions. When you broke a block, you didn't get anything from it, and if you dropped items, they'd essentially be deleted. so the 999 glass and wood is the most you can and will ever have. Other notable features include the obsidian compass, as well as the brick pyramid, an extremely rare and huge structure that was designed to test how very large structures handled in the game. And much like the pyramids in Egypt, they'd be the largest structures ever generated for years. And they may still be the largest. We'd have to look into that. It would take about a month for the game to get back most of the features it lost. These truly are the most broken updates. But by the first secret updates, the game really started to take shape once again. The reason so much was removed was to focus solely on the world generation. Starting with just getting infinite worlds to load, Mojang slowly put everything back together like a puzzle. I'd like to explore Infdev more in a future video, but for now, it's time to check out what's next on the list. Now, the next few in this video were added after the release version of the game. While Infdev may be the most broken, the game was still in pre-alpha, and it was a lot more reasonable to have unstable or broken games. But for updates after the official release of a game, expectations are far higher. Release 1.3 added the original village trading system, emeralds, ender chest, sandstone stairs, desert and jungle temples, as well as single-player commands. I personally remember checking it out for the first time and immediately going into creative mode on my survival world, cheating a bunch, and getting really bored of it thereafter. I'm sure many people can relate. Now, another thing I noticed was the game was a bit laggier than normal, sometimes dragging the game down to a crawl. This is because 1.3 made single-player worlds internally use a multiplayer server, which brought all the issues from multiplayer at the time into the base game of Minecraft. Mob AI became clunky and slow, and you'd occasionally have blocks reappear after being broken. The worst change was that the lighting engine almost completely broke. Pretty much anywhere you could find a pitch black shadow, and it made the game aesthetically look pretty horrible. Luckily, things would improve over time, and by 1.7, nearly all lighting bugs would be completely squashed. But anyone who played the game from 1.0 to 1.6 remembers how bad the lighting could get at times. It's time for the final version on our list, and it was a major part of my last video. The adventure update completely shifted the direction of the game, to some for the better and to others for the worst. It added hunger, sprinting, enchanting, brewing, completely new world generation, the end, villages, tons of new planks, stone blocks, decorative items, nether fortresses, the list goes on and on and on. It was a bigger update than anything that had or ever has come out in terms of its impact on the game. Infdev may have made worlds infinite, but to many that was a natural evolution from small, pre-generated worlds. The two updates making up the adventure update, Beta 1.8 and Release 1.0, came out of the blue and was completely unexpected. Mojang made a huge risk by tossing the formula that had been working for them and made them popular in the first place, and replaced it with what ended up being kind of an ugly, broken, unoriginal mess for quite a while. Grass went from a pleasant bright green in most biomes to either the dull yellowish green color in plains, a drab bluish green in taigas and mountains, and the absolutely awful grayish purple color we see in swamps. Things looked a bit nicer in forest or terraformed mushroom islands, but alongside flattening out worlds and less interesting biome generation, Mojang clearly wanted their game to be quote-unquote realistic. Now, figuring 2012 through 2014 were the best years in Minecraft history in terms of relevancy, this change obviously paid off. However, that may just because the core mechanics of the game were that great, or my opinions on this subject are just totally wrong. Switching from beta to the release versions, you'd likely be met with your house ending up in a swamp, next to a mountain with perma-black voids all over it, as well as thousands of new bugs that flooded the game due to the adventure update being rushed from Minecon 2011. Luckily, ever since the release 1.7, the update that changed the world, the new generation is, at least to me, better than it had been, and the game is much more polished. Additionally, with the changes coming in 1.18, I'm really looking forward to how things will look like in a few months. Oh wait, I'm forgetting one version, aren't I? I can't believe I missed the most broken, corrupt, and just absolutely terrible version to ever be added into Minecraft. Release 1.10, the Frostburn update. Perhaps the coolest name for literal garbage, whoever thought it was a good idea to have auto jump on by default should be